Have you ever felt like you're just drowning in obligations? Constantly saying yes on the outside when every fiber of your being is screaming no on the inside? Well, today, we are diving into a book that's basically a lifeline for that exact feeling. It's Boundaries: When to Say Yes, How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. In a world that is always yelling, do more, be more, this book just whispers a really radical truth. Your well-being actually matters. The authors, two clinical psychologists, give us this game-changing framework that is both psychologically sound and, for many, spiritually resonant. And get this, it's not just about learning how to say no. It's really about saying a powerful yes to a life of clarity, freedom, and authentic connection. So, are you ready to build your own personal property lines of well-being? Here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to walk through this in 6 key parts, starting with what boundaries even are, then navigating the super tricky world of relationships, and finally, figuring out how to overcome all that resistance that holds us back.
Okay, let's get right into it. What exactly are these boundaries that we keep hearing about? I mean, it's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but what does it really, truly mean for our day-to-day lives?
I want you to imagine for a second that your life is a beautiful garden, okay? Well, boundaries are the fence that protects it. And they're not there to keep people out. They're there to define what's yours to take care of, your thoughts, your feelings, your choices, and what's not.
Let's meet someone named Sherry. On the outside, she's the one everyone can always count on. But on the inside? Oh, she is running on empty, totally fueled by guilt and this deep fear of letting people down. Her story is such a powerful reminder of where a lack of boundaries can take you. Straight to burnout, bitterness, and relationships that feel way more like obligations than actual connections. And here is the big twist, the thing most people get wrong. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. It's actually about taking ownership of your own life so that you can show up for other people as your best, most authentic self. It's not selfishness, it's what the book calls self-stewardship.
But, okay, let's be real. Maintaining those property lines is not always easy, is it? So in part 2, we're going to dive into the common conflicts that really test our boundaries and explore, why they're so incredibly hard to hold. So the book paints this really vivid picture of the different ways our boundaries can break down. First, you've got the compliant, who is basically a yes machine, just terrified of disappointing anyone. Then there's the avoidant, who builds a fortress around their heart, shutting out even the good stuff. You've also got the controller, who sees someone else's boundary as a challenge to be conquered. And finally, the non-responsive, who's so caught up in their own world, they don't even see the needs of others. Do you ever wonder why you react the way you do in certain situations? Well, the book connects these patterns all the way back to our childhoods, showing how our early experiences create a kind of boundary blueprint for the rest of our lives. For a lot of people, this is a real aha moment for understanding why we do the things we do.
All right, so we've talked about the what and the why. Now it's time for the how. Part 3 is where it gets really practical, giving us the actual tools we need to build stronger boundaries in pretty much every area of our lives.
Let's start with family, which, let's face it, is often the trickiest territory. The book gives us a roadmap for navigating all those complex dynamics, showing us how to honor the people we love without completely losing ourselves in the process. And what about friends? This can be a tough pill to swallow, but sometimes our loyalty can actually do more harm than good. This section teaches us how to be a true friend, not a doormat.
Do you think a strong marriage means no boundaries at all? Think again. The book reveals that true intimacy actually flourishes when two whole, separate people choose to come together. It's supposed to be a dance, right? Not a wrestling match. And for our kids, well, boundaries are a gift. They teach them the self-control and responsibility they're going to need to thrive.
And the practical wisdom does not stop there. The book also gets into some of the really unique boundary challenges we're all facing in this fast-paced, always-on world of ours.
Let's talk about work. That place where going the extra mile can so easily turn into a marathon of complete burnout. The book gives us the tools to reclaim our time and our energy without torpedoing our careers. And in our hyper-connected world, learning to set digital boundaries is pretty much a survival skill at this point. But honestly, here's maybe the most mind-blowing concept in the whole book: setting boundaries with ourselves. Yeah, it's about saying no to our own self-sabotaging impulses and saying a big yes to the self-care that truly nourishes us. It's not selfish, it's a radical act of self-love. This whole journey of self-discovery doesn't just stop at the psychological level. The book actually takes us even deeper, and it explores the spiritual roots of what it means to have healthy boundaries.
Drawing from Christian wisdom, the book suggests that boundaries are actually woven into the very fabric of the universe. And it's a beautiful idea that the divine respects our freedom, inviting us into connection without ever forcing our hand. So in this view, when we set our own boundaries, it's a way of honoring that sacred dance between freedom and responsibility.
And you absolutely do not have to be religious to feel the power of this idea. Because at their core, boundaries are simply a commitment to living in truth, to choosing freedom, and to loving ourselves and others well.
Okay, so if boundaries are so great, why are they so darn hard to set? In our final section, we're going to face those emotional dragons that guard the gates to our freedom.
You know, the moment you start drawing those lines in the sand, you can expect to get a little pushback from other people and sometimes even from yourself. The book walks us through the most common fears, and it starts with that gut-wrenching thought, what if they get mad at me?
And then, of course, there's that sneaky little voice in our heads that whispers, you're just being selfish. It is such a powerful fear, one that can keep us trapped in cycles of people-pleasing for years and years.
But maybe the deepest fear of all is the one that strikes right at the heart of our need for connection. What if they leave me? It's that fear that if we're not constantly giving, we're going to be abandoned.
Now, the book doesn't sugarcoat it. Setting boundaries can be really uncomfortable, but it gently reminds us that discomfort is not the same thing as danger. It's the feeling of growth, of stretching into a new, healthier way of being. The goal isn't to avoid the storm, but to learn how to navigate it with grace.
So, what's waiting on the other side of all this hard work? It's a life that isn't perfect, no, but it is real. A life where your relationships are built on a solid foundation of honesty and respect. A life where you finally feel at home in your own skin. The only question left is, are you ready to start building?